Hello denizens of YouTube and members of the Stunting Matrix, and welcome to another video. We're going for the Q&A number 2, but first of all just want to do one quick plug because there's only 2 days to go. The AD English Invitational starts in 2 days on Wednesday. I'm hoping to actually start it off on Tuesday evening, but we're going to be live and kicking on Wednesday for sure, so looking forward to that. The Q&As this time round have been mostly for Blood Bowl 2, but there have been a couple for Total War Warhammer as well. I'm going to do my best to go through them in order, but we'll see what happens there. Now, I also want to mention that I'm going to start a new series on this channel. It's based off the recommendation of Squiggy, and I really like this idea, where I take a team into CCL or into my own, preferably into my own spin league that I've created, and I play 10 games of each team, telling you why I've chosen the levels I've chosen, why I've chosen the team I've chosen, why I've chosen to do what I've done, the team basically. So just go through it with hopefully all 24 races. The order is up to you. I've put a vote in the Discord channel, and we'll see how I do with each of those teams, and hopefully we can add some developmental help with each of the 24 teams more in practice than what I've been doing. In the background I've left a goblin screen for making a goblin team, because the first question is related to this. This first question is one that I missed from Squiggy last Q&A, so I'm really sorry about that, Squiggy. It was an honest mistake. So the question was, who would win in a fight? 5 goblin-sized troll or 1 troll-sized goblin? Right, well, if we assume that we're using these two then, so we have a big goblin with right stuff, dodge and stunty. Right stuff won't help him. And we have 5 small trolls with always hungry, mighty blow, regeneration, loner, really stupid, and for a teammate. I can imagine a situation where the trolls are trying to gang up on the goblin and they just roll lots of ones, get lots of really stupids, and the loner doesn't help. But let's be honest, in a fight between mighty blow and stunty, doesn't matter what size the two are, the stunty's going to lose. So I say 5 goblin-sized trolls will win that fight for sure. Thank you for that one. And then moving on, so D-Man. He had a few questions this week, but let's start with his first one. What are your thoughts on this thing called TV Bloat? I mean, I really just don't understand why you wouldn't want to use doubles or take plus strength or plus agility on most people. I get the rerolls thing, and I mostly get the cheerleaders assistance thing, but why do people fire players if they reach level 3? Okay, TV Bloat is really a thing. What you have to look at really is whether the skill that you're taking is worth the price that you're paying for it. So for example, even though a skeleton with 4 agility and 7 movement is a lot of fun, it's a waste of money. Having said that though, Fracture will always survive. Not Fracture actually, Relic, isn't it? So I will give you some examples of where Bloat is a bad idea and where Bloat is fine. So if we take my Stumbler team, it kind of fits in the Stumbler team because of the way that it works, but I have this piece here, Relic. Relic is level 4. A skeleton is 40k, don't forget that first of all, and this skeleton is now worth 150. So, basically he's gone almost 4 times in price based on 3 levels that make him kind of awesome. Oh, he's movement 6, he's not movement 7. But at the same time, you know, he kind of doesn't belong on a standard undead team for certain. He works in the Stumbler setup for sure, but if it was a standard undead team, then this piece definitely needs to go, because it's just 150k, that's a wizard, just on a skeleton. And the team where it works more often than not, if we make a custom team very quickly of lizards. Lizards is a good example where you want to actually fire the piece when it levels, so we'll call them Liz. And custom team. So to show you what I mean, if we take a skink, lovely skink, okay, let's take 2 skinks actually, just so I can show the difference. Basically, a skink is your main scoring threat in the team, and it's going to get a lot of SPP automatically, unfortunately. But there's a big difference between taking a skink that levels up once, and for example, it gets catch, pretty straightforward level up for a skink, I think. Facing a skink, facing another skink, who first of all rolls a double, so you give him block, awesome. Second of all, rolls strength, because he's a great skink. And third of all, gets a normal, and you give him catch then. This isn't actually a bad skink, the one I'm creating now. He can fit in the team, but if you have two free like this, or if for example you have one even worse, that he keeps leveling up and he doesn't get a double, so you just keep giving him things. For example, we can give him diving tackle, that's kind of useful. We can even give him sure feet, that's kind of useful. And you can make an argument for sprint or sidestep, of course, but if you're getting a piece that has all of these things, let's give him leap for fun. All of a sudden he's worth 140 and he's not very useful in the long scheme of things. I mean, he can do certain things, but he's not really much better than a basic skink. So when you get to the point where he hasn't been given at least block by this point, then it's worth retiring him and starting again, just because he's worth 140 and he's not adding enough to the team. Also, he's stealing SPP from the Sorai and he's stealing SPP from the Croxicle, which you really don't want. So this is why we recycle players, basically. If they keep leveling up and they're not getting anything particularly useful to help the team long term. I hope that answers the question. There was a second part of the question, which wasn't. Let's have a quick look. So, why wouldn't you take strength for agility on most people? That's a little bit more difficult. I can't really see an argument not for taking strength apart from on a piece that has a lot of strength already. I mean, really a lot of strength, strength 7, strength 6 even maybe. And I can't see the point in taking it on them, but if you're taking it on pretty much any other piece, it's probably worth it, but it depends on the team that you're making. In terms of agility, there's a good argument not to take agility on a lot of pieces where they just won't use it, basically. So there's no point, for example, in taking plus agility on a mummy. Giving them agility 2 doesn't really help your cause, and that's 50k you just don't need to spend. That's the basic rule there, I guess. What was the last part of the question? The reroll thing, cheerleader and assistant thing. I actually quite like having 1 or 2 cheerleaders and assistants, but not more than that. But if you have 2 of each, then that's 40k. So you're 10k away from a babe, which fan factor makes up for certain. And it's just 40k that's close to a wizard, etc, etc. And the rerolls, same idea. If you don't need a reroll, you're not using it, then drop it. Good question though. And related question then he says, what's wrong with having a 2200 TV team? Nothing, in theory. It depends. If you have it in a ladder like Cole or CCL, then you're always going to be the high TV team if you have a TV of that much. That's the main reason why people like to keep their TV down in an open ladder, because you want to have a favourable opponent. And if you are 2000, 2000 plus, then you're probably facing 1700 at best, and that's automatically a 3-star player, which you'd rather not give them. So that's the only thing wrong with having a 2-2 team, I think. I should say. And going back to Squiggy then, what are your thoughts on Resurrection format? Is it a true level playing field where knowledge of your team is the key element and there is no crutch of high value skill spam? Or is it simply not as difficult or involving as developing a team from its origins? Yeah, thanks Squiggy, it's a good question. It's going to require a little bit of thought, I think. I have thought about it, and I don't think it's a level playing field, no. I think it's equally as unlevel as the rest of Blood Bowl. I mean, there's a big difference between a 1400 High Elf team and a 1400, for example, Lizard team, even if you've created it yourself. There's just more skills on the Elf, probably, and there's more skills on the Elves, probably, more useful skills at least, whereas the Lizards are going to be slightly behind, for example. Or teams like Norse, like Amazon, like all of these teams that really, really do well at the start are going to be a lot weaker compared to all of this tackle and all of this mighty blow, etc. that's going to really hurt them. So I don't think it's a level playing field, definitely not. The second question is more interesting. Knowledge of your team is the key element and there's no crutch of high value skill spam. Yeah. It is true that knowledge of your team is something that you can really develop in Resurrection. I think Resurrection format is really good for practice. Yeah, I think it's really good for practice actually. If you're quite new to the game and you want to see how something works, then try a Resurrection format, play the same team 5-6 games in a row, and see what you can learn from the skill setup that you have and the skill combination you have. Also really learn what goes wrong. I think most of the things that I've learned from playing passing games actually is how useful actually I find passing skills personally, though I wouldn't necessarily recommend somebody else to take them. And resurrection format is a good way to test out these theories that you have and find out that they actually do work, or find out that it was a really bad idea and everybody telling you it was a bad idea were right. Having said that though, I would always recommend trying what you want to try. I'm pouring coffee, sorry, that's why I'm not looking at the camera. That would be something that I would highly recommend personally. So the resurrection format basically is very good for trying something that you haven't wanted to try. I don't think, though, that it makes for an even playing field, and I think anybody who's making that argument is not really thinking it through. And it's simply not as difficult or involving as developing a team from its origins. No, I wouldn't say so. I think if you're making a good resurrection format team, you have to spend a lot of time thinking about what to put on the actual team. So, no, I think it's very much a tactical game as opposed to a... I think there's more tactics involved than standard Blood Bowl, maybe. Maybe. But that's all I can really say for resurrection format as a positive. Okie doke. I hope I answered that question. And it's going to take me a little while to find the next one because there's quite a lot of comments. There we go. Squeaky again. Do you have a headcanon for your teams? I love to write the story of my teams, even if it's just for myself, as they develop and grow, and Yasinde's Locker Room Report, I'd recommend that by the way, Series 4 his Rebel Dark Elf team is some of my favourite fluff ever, mine too. Wondered if you'd ever done some similar or considered doing so. Right, I don't have any specific headcanon for my teams, no. I usually create a team with headcanon in mind though, so for example, the Stumblers. The Stumblers are a team that came into being because basically there were lots of skeletons that were not allowed into main teams, and they all banded together and decided they would all become star players of their own team. They refused to hire too many stars, so they've just taken the one white and the one mummy, and then it's all zombies and skeletons. This is kind of the story behind them. I also had the... what were they called? They were called the Blood Bowl Armorers for a while, which was my tinfoil team in ICBBL, and the story behind them was that each of them were old armorers for Blood Bowl teams, and they were murdered. It was also an undead team. They were murdered because there was a game that went really badly and a lot of armor value breaks happened to, for example, dwarves, to orcs, etc. So the team is a combination of all Blood Bowl armorers playing together and trying to outplay their opponents and trying to get revenge for the deaths caused that they thought were a little bit unfair. Then the Pro Stumblers, for example, that all my teams have headcanon is the answer to the question, yes. The Pro Stumblers are the original, real team that came into being after seeing the Stumblers play, and the real players, the real original players, the real original Specimen, the real original Fracture came and they wanted to show up the other Stumblers. And then there was a whole video about the Prince of Hell, but the Prince of Hell are all characters from one of my books. I'm a writer. And basically they're characters based off those characters, and I did have some fluff. I've played with it a little bit less recently because I've actually been playing somewhat seriously. Last game notwithstanding, the game I'm probably going to record from bronze, but generally speaking, there is a story behind them. For example, Saragon and Shalmar, they both hate each other, so they're never going to work in combination on the field. They'll never pass to one another, for example, and they'll never defend one another. Things like this. But sometimes I like to play it, sometimes I don't like to play it, so it depends. But yes, I have a headcanon when I make the team basically, but I don't usually develop the headcanon as the game goes along. No. Okay, back to D-Man then. You mentioned that you like passing with every team really, though I might be remembering not entirely correctly. No, that's what I said. Does that include Khemri, who do have a throw raw, albeit agility 2, and stunty teams outside of throw teammate? What about other AG3 or AG2 teams with no dedicated thrower? Okay, so I always like to create a dedicated thrower if I can. For example, the Stumblers, they don't have a thrower, but here we go, I have one suddenly, I've made one. And I only really throw when I need to, though to be honest, when I was playing the Stumblers at first, it was mostly a joke, and they threw the ball a lot. They passed a hell of a lot, actually. The same with the Khemri team. I think that making a blitz thrower into a thrower is not a good idea. I wouldn't say it's a good idea, but it's sometimes a useful skill to have just to fall back on if you really need it. And when it comes to things like orcs, for example, where the thrower really can be a thrower, but people don't give them enough credit, I really think that the orc team is much more maneuverable with a throw piece who can throw. I can't remember if this one's developed. No, he hasn't. Where is the thrower? Ah, he's there. Yes, he has developed. So for example, I've given him safe hands, so he's more likely to be able to throw. Safe throw, sorry. So he's more likely to be able to throw over the opposition team. That's the basic idea. And basically it gives me extra options in the team. That's all it is really. So there's a difference between having 4 blitzers already in a position to score. It's a lot of pressure on the opponent, because if the opponent knows that I can pass, it can cause a lot of psychological distress for the opposition. And that's the main idea. And I do the same with agility 2, whatever. If a pass is necessary, then of course I'll take it, even if it's not a dedicated thrower. And usually I do develop a dedicated thrower in most teams. Though it's not, again, it's not something I'd necessarily recommend to a new coach, it's just something I personally like to do. And also D-Man, also to expand on AD's cat and dogs team, would you consider a lion big guy and tigers as the blitzers, or a wolf blitzer for the dogs, maybe throw a couple of small dogs in there as stunties? Okay, so I actually created these teams just to give you an idea. I haven't thought about who would be what, like where the wolf would be, where the fox would be, I don't know. I can maybe make that up, but it's not really something I've thought too hard about. I am actually quite interested in the way the team actually is built though, so I did make a mock-up of both of them, if I can finally get there. Here we go. So the dog team. The dog team, I think I mentioned each of the pieces, but I've actually created the team here as a custom team. So we have every piece would catch, apart from the thrower, like I said. I think I said the thrower would have catch as well, but the thrower doesn't have catch. And you have your basic linemen who have just catch, that's what they start with. And I can imagine them having the same stat line as a human lineman, so 6-3-3-8 sounds good. And catch. So they're not great catchers, but they can catch if they need to. And then this is the dog team, by the way. And I imagine that the human catchers, the dog catchers would actually be dogs, if you really want me to put the animal type on there. Then you have the blockers that have catch and block, and I can imagine these being a kind of wolf, but not quite as strong as the werewolf, and I don't want to put the werewolf in the team, quite importantly. The difference would be minimum. I think I would actually use the same stat line for the blocker as I would for the blitzer, sorry, as I would for the lineman. Then we've got the catchers, or the fetchers, whatever you want to call them, and I think this is a little bit overpowered, but I wanted to try it. I haven't had a chance yet though. So I was thinking of maybe giving them extra movement, dropping AV, still agility 3 though, that's quite important, but there's no piece that has 7-3-3-7 in this custom team. And they have catch, diving catch, and pass block, so they're always in a situation where they can do something with the ball. And then the last piece would be a thrower, and they wouldn't have catch, but they would have pass and strong arm, so they can pass pretty much anywhere on the pitch. Would this team be overpowered? I don't know. Oh, and I forgot about the stat line. I'd actually keep pretty much the same stat line across the board, maybe just add movement to the catcher and to the thrower, that would be it. And maybe drop AV, maybe not. Maybe drop AV on the catcher because they have so many skills. So 7-3-3-7 and 7-3-3-8, maybe, for example. Or 7-2-3-7 even. That's even better. No stunties though, no. And no big guy. I don't see the need for a big guy, especially in a team that consists of mostly throwing. It seems like a very strange addition to the team. Though I can imagine definitely the wolf being the main lineman. I can imagine a basic domestic dog being being a blitzer. The wolf being a blitzer, the basic dog being a lineman, and then the catchers being more of a fox-like animal, and the thrower something in between a fox and a wolf. I don't know, I haven't really thought about it like I said. And the feline team is maybe more interesting. I've taken elves as an example because I can imagine them being mostly movement 7, maybe even agility 4. So we would have the basic lineman, which actually I like the stat line of the Elf Union lineman, and I think it'd be the same, so 6-3-4-7. But they have sure feet, so they can potentially run 8 most of the time, but movement 6. And if you get a plus movement on them, you know, it's a really solid piece. They don't have dodge, block, or anything like that though, it's just sure feet. Then there would be what I would like to call a hunter, where they have sure feet, shadow, and claw. No block, but they basically work like a blitzer in a similar kind of way. And I can imagine them being the same stat line here again, so 6-3-4-8. Then we'll have the catcher that has catch, sure feet, and I prefer less movement, so maybe 7-3-4-7 or 7-3-4-8 maybe, but 7-3-4-7 I guess. and a thrower that has pass and sure feet with, again, 7-3-4-7. So I've actually thought about the team a little bit. In terms of cats, yeah, I can imagine more tigers and wolves and things being part of it, but maybe a cheetah as a catcher, for example, but I don't know. Again, I haven't really thought about it that much. I'm just throwing crap into the wind, basically. But there we go. I did develop the team just because you asked me for more information about them, so I made them. Kind of. I'm not going to draw them or anything like that, though, because I'm not that crazy. Yet. Okay, there are a couple of Total War questions, but I'll come back to them, so let's carry on with Blood Bowl stuff. Can you do a skill rundown? Can I do it now? It seems a bit crazy. No, I think I'll make a separate video for it. But I've been asked a couple of times to do a skill rundown, and yeah, I think I'll prepare for it properly and do a separate video. I'll do it. I may do it with the lizard race rundown this week. I'll think about it. If I have time, I will. So, yes, I can do a skill rundown, but I haven't done it yet. I was going to maybe do it in this Q&A, but I think it'll take too long. So, from Full Metal, thank you for joining the Q&A, by the way. Very much appreciated. Do you think with the right caster's approach and quality control, Blood Bowl 2 could ever be considered a true esport? Ever since you asked this question, I've been really interested in my own thoughts on the answer, and my answer depends very much on the way that it would be handled. I mean, we have actually tried to cast the World Cup before in the Blood Bowl community. Not we, you and I, but we, the Blood Bowl community, where Knorr, the Sage, who else was there? WoW Krendor, I think 2 more who I can't remember were there as well, where they actually cast the finals of the World Cup and they tried to make it a kind of esport. I think it's possible, and the main reason why I think it's possible is because there's just such a huge audience for this game. And because there's such a huge audience, I can see it actually being done. And to be honest, I think you guys are the guys to start it, the Rebel guys, because you've already got this kind of in place where you're making it a very, very big part of the community to have this content. So I think a good place to start it would actually be in the Reddit leagues. So keep doing what you're doing, and as it grows, it kind of will become an esport automatically, just maybe an insider esport as opposed to a televised esport. I don't think it will ever reach the kind of viewership of Dota, for example, or any other games. League of Legends, I think, is also a big game. But maybe it can be kind of like a poker thing where it's a very niche audience that watches it regularly, and it can potentially create money off the back of this, especially if we have more faces in Blood Bowl, so more people who are casting, like myself, like yourself, but more importantly, like the Sage, like Knorr, all these people that everybody knows automatically if they play Blood Bowl. Not everybody knows you and I, but everybody knows those two. So that's maybe something. If we can get more faces involved in the game, then maybe. And also Full Metal, I think. Nope, there's one more first. Sorry, we'll come back to Full Metal. So, Chris J. Is there anything you would change in Blood Bowl 2 or something that is missing in the game, not races? Yes, but I think they're mostly personal things. To be honest, I miss some of the things from the old Blood Bowl game. There's one thing that I really would change, actually, and it's obviously becoming quite a big thing in the community. Maybe not for people like us, but for people who are new to the game especially. The single player is still really quite weak in that it's not even possible to create a cup where you can choose who your opposition is. And that's a really simple feature that they could probably introduce, and it would help so much. I mean, you can add up to 8 AI teams of your own choice in a multiplayer league. I don't see why you can't in a single player league if they just had that extra option. It would solve a lot of people's complaints, I think. Though I think the whole single player multiplayer competition is a bit much, but at least allowing that in single player would really quash some of the complaints that are coming up. The game is still really buggy at the moment as well, and it's frustratingly buggy at times, so I'd like to see bugs fixed, obviously, but that takes time, takes money, I know, blah blah blah. And I'm not an expert in this kind of thing, so I don't know how much money, how much time it takes, but I'm sure it takes at least some. I've been in an argument in the Steam forums about it, I'm not going to go there again. And some other small personal things, like for example, I'd give the human catcher strength 3, because a high elf catcher has strength 3, and it kind of seems strange that that's a difference. I can imagine a human being stronger than a catcher, than an elf, sorry, so there's that. And then there's just small things I'll change, but nothing. No, I think the game works as it is. I think they've done a really good job with Blood Bowl 2. They're just missing some of the things from the first game that they can bring back, but maybe they will in the future. And he said specifically not races, but they can still, of course, bring in more races. So yeah, the main thing I think actually is the AI problem. On a multiplayer, I think we're doing okay at the moment. Okay, Squiggy, what's the best snack and drink to accompany an afternoon of Blood Bowl? The blood of the students I hate. Okay, so Full Metal. Screw, marry or kill Griff, Varag and Jordell. And I've been told I have to go 1 for 1. Alright then. Cool. I'm not too sure who Varag is. Let's have a look. Let's look up Varag first. I can't remember who Varag is at the moment. Let's do a very quick search. Right, he's the orc. Yes, okay, I understand. So let's see if we can find these guys first of all in the all-star teams, because then we can have a look at what they look like potentially in the game as it is. So I guess that Destruction will have Varag. We'll find out. I haven't actually had a look. I don't know if you guys have. Yes, Varag is here. So this is Varag. Okay, yes, cool. That's who I thought it was. And then... Right, so just to have a look at Varag very quickly then. So Varag has Block, Mighty Blow, Fixed Skull, and Jump Up. Interesting. And he's a really good looking guy, so he may well be the one that I marry or screw. Then in, I guess, order, we'll have the other two. In fact, I'm not actually sure that Jordell is in it at the moment. Oh, there he is straight away. So there's Jordell. Okay, hello Jordell. Block, dodge, diving catch, leap, sure feet. Alright. And Griff. I think we all know Griff, but is Griff not in this team? Really? Wow. That's kind of weird. Oh, there he is. Griff, oh, well, there he is. So, block, dodge, wrestle, sure feet, and sprint. Alright. Griff, Jordell, and the orc Varag. Screw, marry, kill, 1-1-1. Well, I think Griff is most likely to survive out of the three, just because it's pretty damn hard to put him down. So just for the sake of keeping a husband for a long time, definitely marry Griff. In terms of kill, I mean, he's an elf, so yeah, I gotta put Jordell down, I'm afraid. It's just, he's an elf. Elves die. I really hate elves. So Jordell is the one to kill. And just from the sheer lack of charismatic sexual magnitude that Varag has, he'll definitely be the one that I screw. Also, I can imagine that, you know, we'll have a hell of a rough ride. So there you go. There's your answer to that question. I hope you're willing to sleep tonight. And back to Squiggy. Have you read the Blood Bowl comics novels? No. If not, do you intend to? No. The reason is basically I can't get hold of them here. That's the main reason. But another reason is that I prefer to keep the lore in my own head. I'm a writer, so I prefer to actually write lore for Blood Bowl as opposed to read it. I do like reading other people's ideas, but mostly because I like the people writing them, not because it's something that's particularly interesting. So, no, I don't really have any intention of reading Blood Bowl related literature. And then, serious question from Full Metal. What are your top 3 favourite star players? Jesus, now that Ellie has brought the full range to us. Top 3. Wow, that's hard. Okay, they're not actually all here, are they? There's only 16 per team, so 16, 32. No, they're all here, I guess, actually. So, well, let's have a look. I actually have an answer, I think, but I want to see if there's anyone I've missed, so I'm just going to very quickly scroll through them all, and you can have a look when they're here as well, because I'm not going to... You can pause and have a look, etc., but I'm not going to go through them, though I'm trying to narrow it down to 3, and it's hard. I have my favourite, that's for certain, and I'll tell you my favourite now actually. I have my two favourite actually, without a doubt, that I wouldn't change. The third one is the hardest. So Zara is by far my favourite star. Not only does she look awesome, I really like the model that they've created, though she does look too much like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but I think that was kind of intentional. I really like her stats. She doesn't need to move too far, she's got good armor, she has excellent strength and also the agility, so she can block if she needs to. She has blodge, almost impossible to put down. She can hit anything that's bigger than her with Dauntless. She has jump up, so she can move wherever you wanted to. And she has stab, specifically stab that can hurt undead things. So in an Amazon team, even in sometimes halfling team, Zara is my first pick as star player. Any team that can have Zara, I'll take her. And I've always liked Zara. Ever since I knew she existed, she's always been my favourite star. My second favourite star would probably shock a lot of people, but I also really like Hemlock. And I like Hemlock because he has great movement. He's not very strong, but he doesn't need to be. His main job is stabbing. And he has sidestep, jump up, blodge. He's, again, very difficult to put down. He has stunty as well, unfortunately, but to be honest, I made an all-skink team where Hemlock was the star of the team, and Jesus Christ, I love that team. It's one of my favourite teams I play in Blood Bowl, so yeah, Hemlock, without a doubt. I'll take Hemlock all day, every day. Also, against anything with AB7 and lower, he can really, really tip the balance in the favour of the Lizard team, Kislev team that he's in. As for the third, I realise that there's one more all-star team to look at. I'll put them up now, and that's the chaotic one. Let's have a look. Come on. Alright. So, the third one is hard, really hard. I mean, I have an answer that is kind of obvious, that the one that, without doubt, is probably the best star in the game. That's the Vampire Star. But, yeah, I don't know, I like quite a lot of stars. I actually like Grotty a lot because of his model. Not because he's any good, but because he looks like he belongs on the Doomdiver catapult. So I do like Grotty a lot for that reason. But this question is really hard, actually. Really hard. I'm quite a big fan of Varag. He's a pretty good Chaos Warrior with 5539 Mighty Blow. And I hate Loot Grip with a passion. I never ever take Loot Grip. I do like Setek. But, okay, let's go for the Vampire. It's the logical choice. So, Count Luther von Drakenborg. He's the best star in the game, probably. Movement 6, Strength 5, Agility 4, Armor value 9, Hypnotic Gaze, no Bloodlust. Fantastic. Okay. And block, sidestep, regeneration as well, of course. So even if he does get knocked out, he's one of the few stars that might actually come back if he gets killed or injured. So, yeah, let's go Luther. I don't use him a lot, he's really expensive as well, but I guess they're my three favourites. Luther, Zara, and Hemlock. Thanks for the questions. Right, and I think that's it, apart from the Total War one. And the Total War one, actually, I'm not going to set up the game just for the Total War one. I'm just going to answer it with Chaos in the background, I guess. So let's have a look at Chaos. Wrong screen. So, the question for Total War Warhammer that gets asked all the time and is kind of annoying me, that's why I want to answer it. The question is, in Total War Warhammer, what turn does Chaos trigger? It doesn't trigger on a turn. I don't have the exact algorithm, to be honest, but I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the quests involving sacking and pillaging different cities, or occupying different cities. I think when you hit the 10 one, I haven't tested it enough to be sure, but I think when you hit the 10 one, that's when the first lot of Chaos come. When you hit the 21, that's when Archaon comes, I think. Though, if it's not that, it's simply the amount of destruction that's caused on the map, either by you or by an AI opponent. So that's what I can tell, basically, that it all comes down to how much you expand with your race. If you expand a lot really quickly, then chaos come really quickly. If you expand slowly, then chaos can come turn 150, turn 200, will never ever come if you don't expand enough. So that's what I can seem to glean from the chaos trigger. Was that all the questions? Let me just do a quick check. I don't want to miss one this time, so definitely answered that one, definitely that one, that one, that one, that one. That's the beginning. Yeah, there were slightly less questions this time, but I'm going to make this a weekly thing every Monday. I hope it's mostly entertaining. It doesn't necessarily have to be informative, but I hope it's at least entertaining. And yeah, give me your questions below in the comments if you want to, or give me the questions on the Discord channel where I have specifically made the place for Q&A, and I will answer them when I can. I sometimes take them from Rebel Rookie League, I sometimes take them from the Steam farms as well, but any questions that I can answer about Blood Bowl or Total War, or myself, whatever, I will. One thing I will give you a hint though, if you trigger certain things in my Discord, you can learn things about me, because Nadika will tell you. So there are certain triggers that give you information about me if you want them. But that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.